Hello and welcome back to Norfolk Fords. Today you can see me and Simon are spreading a bit of tulip waste onto what is going to be our aster field for the year. So over here we have all of the stems, all of the bulbs that we have got no use for anymore. So the stems won't have made supermarket grade for whatever reason. So they're getting spread back on, regain that nitrogen for the next crop, being the asters. Same with the tulip bulbs, they're of a variety that we're no longer interested in replanting for next year, going through the cold stores and all that sort of stuff. Replanting, rejuvenating, and having another crop on out of them in the greenhouses for 2 years' time, I think it would work out as. So that is just the nature of tulips. You've just got to make the most of it, and when you have a lot of tulips to get rid of, we're nearly at the end of the pile now, but yeah, that is just how it is. So once we're done spreading, I shall be on the tractor. We'll get it, chopped in, subsoiled and ploughed in. And this year we've got a new challenge. We're following leeks, and yeah, wouldn't have been my first choice to have followed leeks, especially knowing what we do now, because we've tried a few different things to chop them and knock them about, but they're incredibly thick stalks and that makes them very stubborn. So with the discs, which we normally use just to bury stubbles, it knocks the top off of them, but it doesn't really knock them about enough to break them down. Like I said, they're very thick. We've tried putting a power harrow over them, thinking that the rotating tines would smash them. It doesn't. It's really annoying. Well, actually, you can see here where the power harrow's been, and it looks a hell of a lot more buried than the discs do. So there's the disc work. You can still see a lot of leaks on top. The power harrow's definitely buried it more, but then you'll pull up a bit and that's just a thick bit of leek. And when you've got tiny little block plants like that, leeks like that are going to disturb those tiny little block plants. So it's an interesting challenge. So this is a rented field. You sort of have to get what you're given a little bit. But I don't think we'll try and follow leeks again, because they're a lot of hard work. Even after putting them through with the plough and burying them, the bed former will pull the buggers back up. So it's not too bad. It's just a challenge that we didn't really want, but never mind. But we'll get Simon loaded back up again in a couple of minutes. This pile will then be finished with, and then we'll go back to the yard where we've got a load of muck piled up as well. So we'll get some of that spread, and then we'll be on to cultivations. Lovely. I have abandoned the telehandler for now. Simon's going to sort himself out because we're on the big muck heap and that takes him a little while to get round. So that makes sense for me to just leave it up here. But yeah, walking through the barley, and it's looking pretty good. I'm fairly chuffed. There's odd patches where you can see the joint ain't quite lined up. This might have been a block coulter perhaps, but you can just see a little bit of difference here and there. But apart from that, running Egnos, you can see how well this is done, because we've just got such an even coverage. Look at that, you've even got stripes. Beautiful coverage of the field. Like I say, you just get a few little gaps. I think that could be a join, could be a block coulter, Been trying to keep it fairly on it this year with block coulters, because during the winter drilling for wheat, that was quite sticky, so I was having quite a few block coulters. Even though this went in fairly dry, it was still on my mind to keep. But look at those little stripes, that's very satisfying. Very pleased with that. Egnos has worked its way quite well. I still think I want to upgrade the TM to an RTK system, something more up to date, something that will give me more information, more to play with. I think you can argue quite easily on my scale, I don't need RTK, it's a bit of a luxury, but I'd rather be pushing forward, you know, because if not, you're just leaving yourself behind a little bit. I know RTK's been about for a long while, and the kit I've got a quote for, because I do like my Topcon, makes sense to stick with that because I've got half the components ready, like the X25, the steering wheel, all that stuff which is still usable, still up to date. It just makes sense for me to stay on that line, but I just feel like if I'm not pushing forward with some of the technology, even on my scale, I'm not pushing to do more with the farm, I'm not trying to get more out of it. I want to be more productive as such. So, and I feel like RTK is one of those simple little things, a luxury definitely, that's just going to make me a little bit more productive. Keep thinking about environmental stuff. Oh, this bit doesn't look as good. Obviously this was a bit heavier where we redid the truck next to it. Keep thinking recently about environmental bits and pieces. I've had my rant about SFI before, you guys know that. Not a fan, but I do it. Disagree with it. But there's a few grain merchants and stuff which are starting to get involved with this sort of low emission farming incentive stuff. So Frontier sort of poking interest for next year about a scheme which has like 3 tiers to it, like your gold, silver and bronze. And without a lot of effort, I qualify for a silver for what I do with winter wheats. This is all for biscuits, soft wheats for biscuits. So without a lot of hassle, Frontier would be paying me a little bit of extra money for, you know, keeping an eye on what you do. It's just the popular practice, we'll say at the minute. I won't say best practice necessarily, but it's popular practice. But it goes on, so you achieve the different tiers by scoring so many points. One of the big things is you get a lot of points if you don't plough. So, you know, I don't feel like I need to plough every single time I want to put a cereal in the floor, which is fair enough. A lot of people don't, but a lot of people do. I can see the benefit to a more even crop when I do plough on these soils, but there is a cost attached. And if I'm not spending that money on ploughing, and instead I'm being paid a little bit of extra money because I didn't do ploughing, has that offset the yield difference, if that makes sense? So that's a little bit of what I'm thinking at the minute. I'm not saying min-till's the way forward. I'm saying it's being incentivised and I'm running a business. I think that's a fair way of putting it. And while we're walking this way, here are the peonies. I recently did some spraying on it and some fertiliser. That was as we caught the last of the rain. And the early varieties seem to be very early this year. And the middle of the season ones seem to be about on time. So we've got lots of little sticky buds. Anybody who's grown peonies themselves know that these are very sticky when they're at this stage. It's all the sap. But these look like some very strong, healthy plants. And like I say, I think these are early. Dad certainly thinks they're early. So hopefully we have a very good pick this year. We've given it a kick up the bum. We've put some fertiliser over it. we've splashed the cash. Dad has found himself a weigh cell machine after our spreader, which we had in 2006, I think he said. Brand new for £3,000. There's not much you buy for £3,000 now, is there? But that's lasted us nearly 20 years. And it threw a gear that drives the agitation units, and to get the new gear you have to change the gearbox. Going to be nearly £1,000. Well, at that money you need to find something else, really. So he did his usual trick with a little bit of luck. He looked on Cambridge, done himself a deal for one which was in the sale. He was quite chuffed. It had weigh cells. So he got it home, he did a little bit of spreading, realised one of the shutters wasn't shutting properly and he was leaking. Took our old spreader apart, compared the two parts, and it looks like somebody's changed the shutter at one point and gotten the wrong part number. I'll show the picture, but they're just ever so slightly different, which is quite amusing. So we've robbed all the best bits off of our old spreader and put them in the box, and this new spreader takes most of those pieces as well. So all in all, we're quids in because we've got a better spreader. We're very chuffed with weigh cell now. It's been quite easy to use, none of this faffing about weighing buckets. And I had a go over the Peonies with it. Yeah, lovely job. No different to our old one really, but it's just nice to have something a little bit newer, I suppose. But yeah, that's the Peonies. They're going to be quite the pick this year. Looking at all the buds, we've got high numbers of buds. These are your sort of more later varieties, I think. You've got smaller buds. Look, you've got ants there as well. Don't know if the camera's focused or not. There you go. Look at that. How cool is that? Yeah, that'll all come. Not too bad. We're nearly at the reservoir now, and these are the really early varieties. Like, look at that compared to the size of my thumb. That is doing excellent. Look at that. The stalk's nearly as thick as my fingers. That's very good, actually. I'll have to send this clip to Dad. Look at them. Lovely. Right, it is now the afternoon, and we are now in the T7. Behind me is the subsoiler, my favourite job. And if you look here, the experiment of... oh, that's actually getting worse now. The experiment of trying to power harrow has left the topsoil very fluffy to the point that the rear roller on the subsoiler bulldozes a little bit. So I've not really got the tines in that deep. This set here, which I'm just playing with here, you see? If I put that in much deeper, that really pulls the soil up, and that then causes a bulldoze. I don't think I really need that in the floor right now, because we've been through with the power harrow, so they're just for the topsoil, and that will hopefully eliminate the bulldozing. But apart from that, I can't believe how light and fluffy it looks. It's looking pretty damn good. So I'm not trying to get too far ahead, but I'm just trying to get far enough ahead with the subsoiler, just so if he does need a little bit more ploughed work, I don't have to subsoil ahead as well, is what I'm trying to plan. So yeah, you will join me back with the plough in a little bit. Yeah! There we go!
we go again. Nice.